and welcome to Focus Schools podcast, Leading for Impact. My name is Brett Bishop, and I'm so happy to be here today, joined by my good friend Kathy Crum. Kathy, how are you today?
I'm great, Brett. Thank you. And we are joined by my friend and colleague, Tracy Gage, who has been a partner alongside me with district work in school work for many, many years. So, Tracy, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey?
Hi, my name is Tracy Gage, and I live in Springfield, Illinois. I currently work for Springfield School District 186. Just a little bit about my background. I was a classroom teacher for 5 years, resource teacher for 5 years, principal assistant for 2 years, principal for 18 years, and now this is my 4th year as Director of School Leadership in AVID, where I support 7 schools, and I also am the AVID District Director.
So the reason I asked Tracy to be with us today is because I think there's a lot to learn from her about alignment. I titled this when I was thinking about this podcast, I said making connections, moving to integration and clarity. And here's how one district is working on schools in this way. Um, and so one of the things, well, many things that Tracy's done, but one of the things that really stands out to me is the way she and her team and the whole district were able, and she led this, were able to take the principles of AVID and integrate it completely and concretely into the ILT work. And then from there into the school improvement work. And maybe it all kind of happened at the same time, but it's not a separate thing, it's integrated. So Tracy, can you just step back and tell us a little bit about how this evolved and what you've done for this?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this work. Hands down, I am most proud of this work that I've done here along with the team. So when I first started this position, Dr. Nicole Moody, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning and School Culture, and she leads our teaching and learning team, met with us and talked with us about her vision to really have school improvement plans come to life. So if you're a building administrator, which I was a building administrator, you know that you may look at that school improvement plan. You might look at it again a couple more times during the year. And we say it's a living document, but sometimes it's not a living document. And I can say that with firsthand experience because that happened to me all 18 years. So she came to us and said that, and I was very excited about it. So in order to bring that to life, we started thinking about, okay, how do we make that happen? Like, who are the key players? What's the platform? How do we do this? And what ended up happening is we talked about what team is responsible. We talked about a lot of things, but we talked about what team is really responsible for the school improvement plan, which is in Springfield, it's the instructional leadership team, our ILT team. And at the time, our ILT teams were kind of all over the place. Agendas were all over the place. The way meetings were ran were all over the place. Years ago, when we worked with Focus on Results, that was our first work around the ILT team. I think back then it might have even been site leadership team. We had that work, but it had been a long time. So we decided as a group that that's what we were going to focus on. And Kathy Crum initially, and then Gwen came along and really helped our instructional leadership teams kind of get their legs back under them again. We had structures that we followed. There's structured training and processes that are provided for the teams. So really building up our instructional leadership team so we were all doing the same work. So one summer, we went to AVID Summer Institute, which is something we did every year. And they talked about how the work of the AVID teams, that instructional work, really is the same work of school teams. And just threw the idea out there about combining those teams. And it really was like a light bulb went off because we had been working for the year, trying to align different, different initiatives or different ways to make our dream turn into reality. So I took it back to the team and I said, hey, I heard a great idea about aligning the ILT team with the Avid site teams. And the group they agreed that it totally made sense because both teams were looking at instruction. The Avid team was looking at best practices instruction. So we came back to our district the next school year, and we did not require teams to do that. We wanted them to be comfortable with what they were implementing at their schools. So we did not require both teams to mesh and collaborate, but we did require something that came out of combining those teams, which was what we call an Avid ILT agenda. And on that agenda, we have Avid's 4 domains, which are systems, leadership, instruction, and culture. But our district actually added one more component, which is equity, and we came up with SLICE. So you know how districts love to come up with acronyms. So our acronym was SLICE. And SLICE absolutely positively had to be on an ILT agenda, whether teams were combined or not, whether they were using the agenda that we created for teams to use or not, though that SLICE had to be on their agenda. And the reason why SLICE had to be there is because when we think about, so that was the process of combining ILT and beefing up our ILT. But during that process, we really talked about our why, and we talked about, okay, yes, this is important work, but why are we doing this work? And the why was because we wanted every student in Springfield District 186 to leave our district college and career ready. So that was the driving motivation behind our work. So you're probably, whoever's listening to this may be laughing because as usual, we drove ahead and we were like, we're going to do this, that, and the other. And we're communicating it to people. And after a while, we were like, but what's our why? Why are we doing it? So that allowed us to tell people the reason why we want you to have SLICE, systems, leadership, instruction, culture, and equity, is because that will provide our students with a comprehensive environment that will make sure that all their needs are being met. And let me just give you a quick example of what I mean about that. So as our team members walk through buildings in Springfield, our buildings are great. Our buildings are wonderful, but as any other school or building, sometimes you see holes, right? And when you implement different things, you're like, okay, well, I'm implementing, let's just say, for instance, like in the last episode, I talked about organization. So implementing the binders. Well, that's fine to implement it, but there are so many different components that are involved with that. There's a system to implement the binders, right? There has to be proper leadership, which doesn't always have to be the principal. Sometimes it could be the Avid lead or a grade level person that's leading it. Instruction, what is the learning around the binder? Culture, does everybody in the building even like the binder? Like, how will the kids be impacted? How will the adults be impacted? Will it save us time? Like, what are we doing? Do we all do the same thing? And equity, making sure that the binders are sufficient for the students that need them. So that is kind of what we mean around SLICE. What ultimately we want schools to do when they're in their instructional leadership teams, while they're going through the agenda, is to filter what they're implementing through SLICE so that we can make sure that the environments, the school environments and the classroom environments are as conducive to learning and growing as possible.
Yeah, Brett, can you kind of tee that up and show us the example? And the reason I think this is such a terrific leadership move that Tracy and the team did is because it's sometimes for the teachers and people at the school level feel like everything's disconnected. And this was a way of connecting everything in such a concrete way. So Tracy,
Yes.
can you teach
Yes.
us a little bit about this agenda?
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Kathy, because that actually, at the beginning of all this work, we talked about aligning our work, integrating our work, and now we're at Fusion, where it's just all together. But we did that because I remembered, and my colleagues remembered as principals, sometimes it was like whack-a-mole, like what you were trying to implement this and implement that, and nothing was really aligning or integrating. And so things weren't making sense in classrooms. So thank you for saying that, Kathy. So here is our AVID IoT agenda. Could we scroll up or toward the top just a little bit? Thank you. And we were really intentional about the items that we wanted on the agenda. Since we were trying to focus on our school improvement plan and just improvement in our buildings, we wanted to make sure that there were a few things right at the top so everybody could focus on what was important. The first thing was the targeted learning focus that Focus Schools helped our district and all of our schools create. So that guides the work. So that was the most important thing. And then our school improvement plan link is right there. So any discussion that's had during the meeting, that school improvement plan was not far away. It wasn't something where someone said, oh, wait, I'll run down to my office and get it. Like, it was right there. And then the last link, the PD plan link, the targeted PD plan, they would be able to refer back to that also. So those three things are at the top of the agenda. Then when we get to the body of the agenda, you'll notice it says today's worthy target. In our school improvement plans, we have worthy targets or adult actions that stand out, and everybody in the school is responsible for learning and meeting and monitoring those actions. So that is where the agenda for the day, and I'll give you an example. So one worthy target may be small group. And that would be written right there next to today's worthy target. And the agenda may be, okay, so what are we going to do about small groups? So I'm trying to describe this. All right. So you can see along the left there, it says AVID alignment, because what I said before is everything that's implemented in the school filters through SLICE, filters through systems, leadership, instruction, culture, and equity. So if Brett, you will click that caret so they can see that there's a drop down. Thank you. And as you're creating your topics, then you decide, okay, we're talking about small groups, but are we talking about systems for small groups? Are we talking about instruction, leadership? Just making sure that's more of like an accountability measure in that left-hand column to make sure that we are meeting the needs of SLICE. And then underneath topic, they would just simply put whatever the discussion was for the day, which may be, teacher training or something like that. And then along the right side is the resources that would be needed for the discussion or resources that would be needed to move the work forward in the future. And then you can scroll down a little bit if you'd like. Oh, I forgot about the discussion notes. So right underneath where it says systems in the red, it says discussion and notes. That's just to keep notes during the meeting. And generally there's someone assigned to that. All right, and then you can go down a little bit. Then we also have a parking lot because the idea with the way the agenda is set up is to really stay focused, to keep your conversation and keep your ideas focused on the topic at hand. Those meetings are generally 45 minutes, no longer than an hour, so you don't have a whole lot of time. So if additional topics come up, then you put them in the parking lot, and about 5 to 10 minutes before the meeting is over, stop the work and come together and decide what the key messages are. Because definitely at the end of the meeting, you want to make sure whatever message is sent out to the staff, that everyone has agreed on what that will be. And then the next IoT topics is self-explanatory.
And I can say that from the time that they introduced this, I was probably not even at the beginning of the year. It was kind of mid-year. And then I always meet with the ILT chairs monthly, but by the end of the year, I would say 90% of the schools were using this agenda, and probably by now they all are. But it's just a really great example of integration of AVID, integration of Focus Schools work, ILT. It's all just right there.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, can I ask you, one of the things that always occurs to me when you talk about this really strong district work is when you are working with the large number of schools that you have, and even districts that are working with smaller number of schools, typically, I think what we run into is that there are varying thoughts, varying degrees of experience, varying degrees of skill that go with these things. And I wondered if you ran into any challenges. What were they? Were there any challenges in getting this to be sort of universally implemented?
Because when we first started, we did not require teams, ILC teams and AVID teams to combine. That there was differentiation already. So
Yep.
we had some teams that combined it and some teams that kept them separate. And as a district, we had to be ready and willing and able to meet the needs of those different formats. But also with the agenda, because once again, we didn't require them to use that particular agenda, that they had to have a slice, and that pretty much was it, other than the school improvement plan, their targeted learning focus on it. So that once again created schools being in different places. And I will say, as we, went throughout the district, this took a couple years. This took a couple years to implement. Because as we, went throughout the district to different instructional leadership team meetings, whether the discussion didn't follow the format that even Focus Schools was teaching schools to follow, in addition to the agenda looking various different ways. And I'll say not just the agenda looking various different ways, but schools understanding how to use, because we're saying put slice on it, but we had to do the work of teaching people what that meant, how it looks, how it relates to the work that you're doing in that school. That took a while. And so people were at different levels of understanding around that work. That was for 2 years. So.
Right. And the partnering with Focus Schools, then of course we customize the work for the district and everything. So for them, you guys to lead that out, and then for us as consultants to adjust to that was our work as well, but because you did that, and because it also became part of the school improvement plan, then it was really natural for us to say, okay, when you get to your best practices, why not use Wicker strategies, right?
Absolutely.
So then that once you laid that groundwork, that became a lot more easy, for us to integrate those two things together.
Yes.
And I wonder sometimes, like we always use the term bounded autonomy, which I really like that term, because I think it's important when in leadership to acknowledge that people need some measure of autonomy. But to me, the key, what I hear you say, is about the clarity that you gave them around what the bounds were.
Yes.
Right? You can choose to not use this agenda if you want, but here's some things that have to be on your agenda if you're going to use something different, right? So as a principal, I can say, oh, well, I'm just going to use the one they gave me. Or I can say, well, I really like the one we have, but I got to make sure it's got this, this, and this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that's the best way leadership works, is
Absolutely.
because then people can come to it in a way that matches them.
Yeah.
And I also think that encourages creativity on their part. So they're in a part of their brain that isn't compliant. It's wow, let's think about this. How could we make this work for our school? What would it look like with our strengths? And then they see themselves as a leadership entity rather than just someone complying with the central office.
Yeah, and I'll add to that the timing of us rolling out this agenda. Kathy and, well, I don't know if it's Gwen yet, but Kathy had already been working with schools on targeted learning focus, getting their instructional leadership team together. So some schools had already created agendas for the next school year. And then here we come, being a former principal, I was always like, it's March. If we're going to do something different, we have to tell them now. Like, we can't wait until August.
Yeah.
And so some schools had already created documents, and we had to respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a powerful way It's also very respectful. And I think when we lead in respectful and ways that support people,
Mhm.
But my feeling is that has direct impact on every child in the district, because
Yes.
I think the principal starts acting that way to the teachers, and the teachers act that way to the kids, and the, teachers act that way to the parents, and it sets the tone across the whole district that, yeah, we're very respectful of others, and we're valuing the thoughts of others, and
agree.
it's just a great way to lead.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you both for this wonderful conversation here today. I got to be honest, my head was running about the places in my mind that I wanted to share this with as you were talking. I was like, oh my God, I got 5 districts. I want to share this. It's so great. So thank you. From a
You're
personal
welcome.
perspective, I want to thank you for this. And also on behalf of anybody who's listening, to say thank you for joining us, Tracy. Your insight and wisdom and leadership is just so valuable. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we want to also say thank you to anybody who took the time to listen and to watch here today, because we really appreciate you. We know, we're school people, and we know, the word exhaustion has an exponential place in the educators world. So we know how hard your jobs are and how tired you are all the time, but you're taking time to listen today. I think it's really helpful. We also want to encourage you to go to focusschools.com to acquaint yourself with the work that we do, and also perhaps join us in our social media work, because we try to share what's going on with folks across the country doing the same work you're doing, caring about kids. We thank you for being the people who are supporting children, and we hope you will continue to listen to the podcast, and have a great day.